It's your Friday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day, and I hope everyone out there is doing well. A hot one today. Maybe get some pool time later. Maybe when the day is over, the kids do like going to the pool. We've been swimming a lot this summer. It's been hot enough for it. Get yourself out there if you can. Bring me there. Bring this podcast there. You can do that. It's legal. It's actually the point of a podcast is you can bring it anywhere you want. Do that today. Get out of the heat. Go in the water. Maybe don't bring it all the way into the water. Maybe like stay waist deep so your ears, your headphones are not in the water. Anyway, good show today. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune joins me here in a little bit to talk Twins. Lack of activity at the trade deadline. Did add one relief pitcher, Trevor Richards from Toronto. Called up Randy Dobnak. Not a whole lot going on there, though. Kind of what you see is what you get with the Twins. They open a 3-game series tonight against Chicago, which is historically bad. I'm not even making that up. Historically bad, 27-84 this season. That's terrible. On pace for the worst, one of the worst, if not the worst seasons in Major League Baseball history. So Phil and I will talk about that. We will also talk about Comcast. Bally Sports North back on Comcast. First Twins game available to Comcast subscribers is tonight. However, it will come at a cost, at least eventually, on a higher price tier. $20 a month more if you were subscribing to kind of the regular tier that used to have Bally Sports North on it. It's now on a higher tier that has a lot more sports channels. I went through and saw it's got NBA, NBA TV, NFL Network, NHL Network, MLB Network, CBS Sports, a couple of college sports channels, a couple of extra ESPN channels like ESPNU, ESPN News. So a lot more there than what you were getting before if you're a Comcast subscriber on that upper tier. But still, if you were paying for one thing and now you have to pay more, if all you want is access to the local teams, which is what some people want, you will have to pay more after, I believe, a 3-month introductory free upgrade to that new system. So Phil and I will talk about that, where we're headed with all this TV stuff, and much more on the Twins, including some injury news on Carlos Correa that may not be the best. First, though, what did I miss? I want to talk a little football at the jump. I was just having this thought earlier this morning, just kind of sitting around thinking about the Vikings and the Gophers football team and how in years past, Kevin O'Connell and P.J. Fleck have both talked about essentially being a little bit more like the other one. Kevin O'Connell has talked a good game about trying to establish the run, trying to use the run game more to get some more balance into the offense, to get some more, take some of the pressure off of their quarterbacks and also their offensive line. It's more fun to run block than it is to pass block all the time. Instead of having to play defense essentially as an offensive lineman, you are playing offense to a certain degree when you are running the ball versus throwing the ball. So the Vikings have talked a good game about that in Kevin O'Connell's 2 years. P.J. Fleck's Gophers have tried. They've talked about throwing the ball more. Hasn't happened, though. In both cases, it hasn't happened, right? Let's talk about last season. So the Vikings ranked 27th in rushing yards per game in Kevin O'Connell's first season with the Vikings, 2022. Hard to argue with the results that year. They went 13-4. We all kind of knew it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. They weren't going to go 11-0 every year in one-score games, but by and large, what they were doing was working. And hey, if you've got Justin Jefferson, you're going to throw the ball a lot. If you got a veteran quarterback who can throw it around like Kirk Cousins, you're going to throw the ball a lot. But they did want more balance in 2023. And what happened? They abandoned it pretty quick. They wound up ranking 29th in rushing yards per game last season, even fewer than the year before. Now, some of that, a little bit of that, at least in 2022, is that they didn't really have a running quarterback, right? Like sometimes those running quarterbacks can pad your stats. They had it a little bit last year when Josh Dobbs was here for a few games, But by and large, it was, Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, not getting a lot of offense from the rushing game from the quarterback. But even if you look at rushing attempts, percentage of plays, designed runs, things like that, they were, in the bottom third of the NFL both of those years, even though they are saying they were going to commit to the run. Now they're doing it again this year. They're saying, hey, we're going to commit to the run more this season. I'm trying to believe them. Now, I think some of it is personnel, right? Like 2022, you kind of had an aging Dalvin Cook in the backfield trying to get the last and best from Dalvin Cook. He had a good season for them, ran for almost 1,200 yards, but he was very feast or famine. I don't think they felt like they could count on him on, 3rd and 2 or 2nd and 8 to get a lot of yards. So they ended up passing a lot on what might be kind of 50-50 rushing downs sometimes. So, some of it's personnel. So they cut Dalvin Cook. They go a different direction in 2023. They think Alexander Mattison is ready to be a feature back. He just wasn't. Had a disappointing season last year. Ty Chandler gave him some juice towards the end of the year, but they just didn't really have A, the personnel, or B, the inclination to run the ball. Some of it too is the offensive line led by center Garrett Bradbury. They're better. They've been better as a pass blocking group generally than a run blocking group because of the way they are constructed. This year, Bradbury's put on some weight. They're trying to bulk up their guards, the interior of the line. They've got their tackles are set, right? Brian O'Neill, Christian Darrisaw, those guys are set. Both of them are pretty good in both phases of blocking. But they also added Aaron Jones in the offseason. Excellent running back, used to be with the Packers. They still have Ty Chandler, so they're kind of recommitting, they say, to the run. So is this the year they get a little closer to that balance? I think they need to, especially with the quarterback change, right? Sam Darnold is going to be the starter, we think, at the start of the year. J.J. McCarthy pushing him in camp right now. Will he be the starter? At some point, Ben Gessling and I will talk about that more on an Access Vikings podcast, by the way, that you can get later Friday. Whoever's quarterback, though, could benefit greatly from an improved running game. Seems like they have the inclination, have the personnel. Can Kevin O'Connell go against his instincts, which I think is more of a passing, offensive kind of mind? He was an offensive coordinator. He comes from a Rams system where they had, where they threw the ball quite a bit too. Can he wrap his head around the benefits, be patient enough to run the ball this season with the Vikings? I'll believe it when I see it, but I do think the pieces are in place more to do it this year than in the past. But again, believe it when I see it. Same with Gophers football. They said they talked a good game last year. They said Ethan Kaliakmanis, this is a guy that is finally going to pass the ball more for the Gophers. And what happened? Well, they beat the service academies again in passing yards per game, but they finished 123rd out of 130 teams in passing offense yards per game last season. Now, they were better than 3 Big Ten teams. Funny, Rutgers, Nebraska, and Iowa. Rutgers 1 spot below the Gophers. Gophers were 123. Rutgers were 124. Rutgers looking for an upgrade, and they... funny enough, Kaliakmanis transferred after the season. He is at Rutgers. Sounds like he is going to be the starter there this year. They are banking on an improvement from him and going to Rutgers. Gophers banking on a transfer, a guy with more experience, Max Brosmer, coming over from the FCS level, coming over from New Hampshire to revamp their passing game. Now, listen, I think the Vikings' best thing will always be their pass game, right? Like, I think they're grooming J.J. McCarthy to ultimately be a very good quarterback. And in today's NFL, you have to be able to pass the ball. In today's college football, you have to be able to run the ball still. I think that will always be the identity that P.J. Fleck wants. He will always be a run-first offense. But in both cases, you have to be able to do the other one with a certain amount of balance so you're not so predictable, and when you need to do it, right? Like when you need a yard, when it's 3rd and 1, you've got to be able to at least have the potential to gain that yard with a run. In college football, when it's 3rd and 4, when it's an obvious passing down, you got to be able to convert. You got to be able to move the sticks. You need to be able to throw when you need to throw. I think, again, personnel-wise, the Gophers are better suited to pass the ball this year than they were a year ago. Now, they had Tanner Morgan a lot of years. He's not the world's greatest quarterback, but he had, he was a serviceable to good quarterback depending on the season, depending on his options, and they still didn't throw the ball a whole lot. Even the year that Tanner Morgan had his best year in 2019, they were still primarily a run offense, even though they had 2 NFL draft picks in their, at wide receiver, Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman. They were still throwing the ball at a bare minimum, or not throwing the ball very much. They were using it kind of as a sneak attack. Can they throw it a little bit more? Can the Vikings run it a little bit more? Can these offenses meet in the middle a little bit more? Can they get like magnets? Can they pull a little bit closer to each other so they both have the balance they need? That is something I will be watching for in 2024. I want to talk Twins with Star Tribune baseball beat writer Phil Miller. Lots of stuff to get to from this week, Phil. But first off, how are you?
Road weary, but
yes.
ready for the stretch run.
Yeah, 2 more months, right? And 2 months where Twins fans who are Comcast subscribers will have at least the opportunity to watch the Twins, the Lynx, eventually the Wild and Wolves on Bally Sports North again, because those channels are back on. First Twins game affected by it is Friday against the White Sox. So you should see a win if you're a Comcast subscriber. But you're also going to be paying more, $20 more per month on the higher tier. So not entirely unexpected for what we kind of knew about this. You've been hearing rumbling, so did I, about kind of this was going to get resolved, but also how it was resolved with the higher pricing tier, not a surprise. What do you make of kind of where we wound up?
Couple things. Comcast, their assertion is that sports fans already have the higher tier, and so it won't affect many subscribers. That if you've had MLB Network or NFL Network or a couple of other things that are on that tier, you already have it. So they're kind of downplaying the meaning of it. I have to say, I think it's risky, and I think it's really risky for Bally, for the Diamond Sports Group networks. They did not want this on a separate tier because that's a lot less money. They were making money from every cable subscriber. Now they're making it from only those people that take that package. And that's what the hang up was, that Comcast wanted to do this all along. And essentially Comcast got this way because Bally's did not have any choice. They actually yesterday was the day that their bankruptcy case was supposed to conclude, right, that a judge was going to go thumbs up or thumbs down on do they stay in business, and they couldn't make that case if they can't even get a carrier deal with one of their biggest carriers. So they had to make a deal, and it is it's not the terms they wanted, and I think it's risky for them because there was a lot of talk in some of the court hearings recently about most favored nation clauses in other contracts, meaning Charter Communications, Cox Communications, DirecTV, some of their other carriers likely have clauses in their contracts that say if you give somebody else a better deal, you have to give it to us too. You have to match it. So this is going to be a big cut to their income, I think, to how much Bally's can earn, and along with that, how much they can pay the teams. So they didn't have much choice, but we will see what this does to their bankruptcy case.
Right, because the thought was that they were just waiting for the resolution of this Comcast situation before we would know whether or not they could at least, we could get a complete picture of whether they could emerge from bankruptcy court. But that's still got to be kind of tenuous, right? If they're not getting as much income now from all of these carriers as they probably used to.
It's a dangerous situation for Diamond and for Bally's, especially because I think it's pretty clear Major League Baseball would just as soon go on without them, would just soon move into the future with a new carrier, or actually bringing it in-house is what they prefer. But now Bally's will be getting significantly less revenue from their cable, at least Comcast systems, and I would imagine they'll have to match the other carriers' contracts too, and give them the same kind of break that Comcast got. That's less money that they can take in. That's less money that they can pay out. It will be interesting to see. We've already seen the effects that this has had on the Twins this year.
Yes.
If revenue continues to go down, if they don't have a contract for a TV carrier next year, so who knows how much money they're going to make from it. But it's a really good bet. It probably won't be $54 million, which is what they made last year.
Right.
And I'm. It's kind of a Twins problem in the Twin Cities, but it's going to be several other teams' problems too going forward. So, it's kind of an ominous. It's a good thing in the short term for Twins fans. It's kind of an ominous development for the future of Bally's networks.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I wonder two things. One, you mentioned that they're kind of downplaying the impact of this, but if I know sports fans, if I know Minnesotans, if you were getting a channel before and now you're going to pay $20 more per month for it, even if you're getting other stuff, I don't know how many more people were on that upper tier. Like I'm as a sports fan, I don't know if I'd be tempted to pay that much more already for, NFL Network, things like that. I don't know if I would have to have those channels. And, the big one for me to always have whenever I'm a subscriber is Bally Sports North. I mean, I want ESPN, I want things like that, but like you want access to your local team. So I bet there was a lot of Twins fans who were on the lower price tier and who now have a decision to make. And I don't know what that decision is going to be for the majority of them. They're going to say, hey, I got to have my Twins, let's watch them, or, Lynx, Wolves, everything like that, Wild. Or are they going to say, you know what? We used to be getting this and now it's more money. We're not paying it.
Yeah. And the truth is that's in addition to having to subscribe to cable, which fewer and fewer people want to do. That's the real difficult part for the Twins and for Major League Baseball is that they don't have a streaming option without a cable outlet. They want to be able to. Rob Manfred said it in court a year ago. Now we want a website, an app to be one-stop shopping. You want to watch this game, you want to watch this team for the whole season, for a month, whatever you want. You come to the MLB app, and we'll sell it to you, and you can stream it on your phone or your TV or wherever you want. And they're so stuck in 10 years ago right now that they are just not meeting the future. And I think there's reason to believe that if they could offer that, if they could say, come and watch an entire season of Twins games for $100, $120, whatever you want to charge, I think it wouldn't be nearly the revenue stream that they had with cable. But no, you got to let that go because I don't think cable's coming back.
You got to do both, right? And that's what they haven't been able to do so far, at least not the Twins. Now, some teams have sold their streaming rights. They do have the streaming rights as part of their deals, but as we've talked about ad nauseum, the Twins do not, and they are not as part of this. Nothing has changed in this Comcast deal. So I do wonder, like, as we spin forward to 2025, if the viability of Bally's is in question, then that makes the decision perhaps easier that the Twins could wind up on MLB as soon as 25. But if they're, even if they're not, if the revenue is much less, I'm going to be trying to pay the Twins a lot less because the contract does expire again this year. When does what Bally is or what Diamond Sports is paying the Twins get closer and closer to what MLB could potentially pay the Twins? You know what I'm saying? Like at one point it was a no-brainer financially. If Bally and Diamond Sports are taking in far less revenue, when does that not become part of the equation?
Well, the teams are going to have to decide that, but I think it is becoming. We're obviously getting closer and closer to that point. the problem with the streaming thing is that it's part of their deal with Bally's that,
Right.
they can't compete against them. They were being paid handsomely for the cable rights and couldn't couldn't produce the games other ways or couldn't sell Bally's broadcast to a streaming service. I do think that revenues will probably take another hit in the short term with the promise of someday streaming reaches a level to where it's a little more predictable. But that's the thing. The cable collapse has kind of caught the industry by surprise, and they haven't handled it well. When the revenues get so small to force them to jump, I honestly, in the Twins case, I think that they're probably about there right now. I think I do think that they probably would jump if MLB put together a package of teams and sold them like Manfred had said. The problem, of course, with that is the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox own their own broadcasters. Right. They produce with the Yes Network and NESN and Marquee. They produce the games, basically themselves, and they don't want to be included in that where they would have to share their revenues. And without the Cubs, Dodgers, Yankees, and Red Sox, is the MLB app. How much money is it going to make? Right. The cable. 10 years ago, cable was those were the glory days, and it right. felt like a bubble. It felt like a bubble at the time. That can these revenues stay this high? And the truth is, no, probably not. Not until you start winning World Series and you have more and more fans that want to subscribe. But it's a big problem now, and I just think it's getting bigger.
Well, you referenced, too, the impact it's had on teams already. And the Twins, obviously, they made no bones about it at the start of the year that, the payroll was cut in part because of less TV revenue, or at least TV revenue uncertainty. And, some of it was they have younger players that, payroll is going to naturally go down. But they certainly said TV was a factor. And I have to imagine, even if they're saying payroll wasn't an issue with the trade deadline, that in a perfect world with unlimited money, or at least a little bit more TV money, they might have done a little bit more at the trade deadline than add a okay relief pitcher and call up Randy Dobnak.
It's true. They certainly did not do much. Although I have to say, for as busy a trade deadline as it was, nobody really acquired a difference maker in this trade dedeadline. It looks bad for the Twins. It's just bad optics that they weren't busier. But who is the best player to have changed teams in this in this deadline? Randy Arozarena?
No, that's what I was going to say.
Eric Fetty. I mean, for all the talk about Kikuchi and bringing him here,
right?
Is he? He's not as good as Bailey Ober. Is that a difference maker? Derek Falvey, made the case that no, money wasn't a factor in the trade deadline, and I kind of believe it because there just weren't. There was no Max Scherzer on the market to try to figure out the financials of. They could have used, Fetty, but the price got kind of high for pitching, as it always does. I do think it looks bad that they didn't do more, but I feel for them for what exactly could they have done to make much of a difference. The truth is, Popa, who is rehabbing now, and Brock Stewart, who unfortunately is injured again. Those are probably better than anybody that they could have acquired on the market. So if they get healthy, their lineup is plenty good enough. If they would have liked to have another starter, but maybe David Fester will be that in a month.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, to me, to win a wild card round, you need three starting pitchers because it's only three
Mm-hmm.
games, right? To
Mm-hmm.
go deeper, though, you need four, and they were set up pretty well with that last year, of course, with Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray at the top, and then Joe Ryan. You could throw Bailey Ober in there. You knew a little bit more what you had at the top. Now, I think if you went into a playoff series, let's say if they make the wild card round this year, say they can't catch Cleveland, but they're one of the three wild card teams, and you throw Lopez, Ryan, and Ober, you've got a chance, but you need a fourth really to be a World Series contender, right? Because you're going to have to throw those guys at some point early in that next series. And so that's the difference to me is like I think they're a playoff contender right now. It's hard for me to see them being a World Series contender unless, like you say, Festa is kind of that difference maker, or it's probably a bad time to have for Simeon Woods Richardson to have his worst start in a long time. But I don't think you look at him and say playoff rotation caliber pitcher, and I don't think you look at Paddock and necessarily say that if he comes back healthy. So that to me is the difference. Like if you thought this was a World Series caliber team, and I think they maybe fancied themselves in that conversation at the start of the year, I don't see them having the pitching to be that team right now.
Yes, I agree with it. They don't have other teams probably have better than they do, but I don't know. Chris Paddock is on the injured list, but he's only on the injured list just because of kind of wear and tear in his first year back from his second Tommy John. He thinks these breaks will be pretty good for him. So I don't know what role he will have in the postseason, if it would be as a starter or as a reliever like he did last year. But there is another pitcher that might be able to fill that in. I was really struck by Simeon Woods Richardson's reaction to his bad outing in New York, because he said, I was getting soft contact. Usually soft contact is outs, and today it wasn't. Ryan Jeffers pointed out that I think the only ball hit 100 miles an hour was the home run that he gave up, and that as Jeffers said, we just got singled to death by. I don't know. Woods Richardson did not seem at all unhappy with. He was unhappy with the results, but he said, "I thought I thought my pitching was okay." So I mean. It is asking a lot of a rookie to say you're going to start a postseason game, but I don't know that maybe he'll seem like a rookie in a couple more months.
Yeah, and the good point that you made is that hey, what else could they have done really based on what the market was asking of them? You don't want to mortgage the future too deeply, and they've already committed a lot of payroll to their current guys, including Pablo Lopez and including Carlos Correa, an important part of the lineup, who is now hurt. Where are we with Carlos? Because there was more optimism, I feel like, going into the break than there has been coming out of it.
Well, and the Twins are giving daily updates of what he is doing and how much he is working. But those updates, he's taking batting practice and he's jogging on a treadmill and all optimistic signs. But I can tell you when it happened before. We were on the road in San Francisco when it happened, and the feeling there was this isn't bad. He'll be back in a week or two. There wasn't even sure that he would go on the injured list, and Carlos told us in San Francisco he was still going to play in the All-Star game when the Twins shut that down. But I would say that this is already is taking longer and is more concerning than the Twins are letting on. It's true we've been on the road and have not seen Carlos in a week, but the urgency or at least the feeling that he'll put this behind him in a hurry hasn't really happened, and I don't. It's the kind of injury where until he's fully back, it's just always in the back of your mind that it's hard to get through. And we know it from last year, and we know how it affects him. So I'm interested to see how he looks and what kind of spirits he is in when the homestand starts tomorrow.
Well, and there's the short-term question, then there's a long-term question too. If now you've had it in both, both sides now, both feet, you got to worry a little bit more about, the future years of this contract. And, obviously you can get over this and it can be okay, but it is also the kind of thing that can kind of recur and flare up, and you don't want to be dealing with this and, in one or both feet for, multiple occasions.
Well, he did put it behind him, and he was a different player this year.
Yes.
And he was the Twins' best player. I mean,
Yes, he was.
For 3 months. He was the best player. Their most reliable defender, their most clutch hitter. I do feel like he has established after kind of a worrisome year last year. He has established who he is when healthy. The healthy part, yes. You hate to this turn into a Byron Buxton. Needs 3 or 4 months off at a time to let something heal. But on the bright side, they have established what his health, what his level of play is, and it's really good.
Yes. A couple more things, Phil. One, I mean, they play the White Sox starting Friday. The White Sox are historically bad. I mean, sometimes we throw that phrase around, but they are legitimately historically bad. 17 straight losses, a 27-84 record, 10-44 on the road. I mean, you don't go into most series thinking we should sweep this series, but the Twins probably have to be thinking that, right? When you play the White Sox, it's a chance to sweep.
Well, it's to the point now where you don't want to be the ones to break the streak.
No.
So, there's a kind of a weird amount of pressure on. I'm interested to see in how much the White Sox are, how much they care and how much they're playing, and how, what kind of effort they're getting. They've kind of shredded the team a little bit at the deadline, and as was necessary. I would think a managerial change is probably not going to wait until the end of the season. So we'll see. But it's funny how much pressure you probably feel not to lose to these guys, because come on, they haven't lost. They haven't won a game since the All-Star break.
So. No, they haven't. Maybe final thing. Do you sense there'll be any relief with these guys? I mean, maybe they don't probably feel it with the TV stuff. I'm sure that's more of a Dave St. Peter question and some of the other higher ups. But the trade deadline's passed. Fans should at least be a little bit happier because they have access to the games on Comcast again. Like how do you feel like the mood will be going forward? And how do you think this plays out? It's been kind of an interesting season so far.
It has. I think a lot comes down to that trip to Cleveland that is coming up in a couple of weeks now. I think it would help everyone's mood if the Guardians would lose occasionally. Give them credit, man. Every time I look up, they've got a 3-run lead in the 7th or something. I feel like Twins fans believe they're the best team in the division, and that they need to make their move on the Guardians. And that the Hole got 7.5 games big on this trip, and it can't get much bigger than that without kind of giving up and playing for the wild card. And I don't think that will be very popular. They need to make a move on Cleveland. They need to win some games head to head. They haven't beaten Cleveland this year. Right. So I really think in a couple of weeks that will be kind of the mood setter for the stretch run, that they could play themselves out of it or play themselves into it here in just the next couple of weeks.
We look forward to watching that. Phil Miller, appreciate the perspectives as always. Get a little bit of rest from all the road stuff, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, Mike. Good talking to you.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Great stuff from Phil. Appreciate him hopping on with me today and talking some Twins, talking some Comcast, a big talker this week, and I'll be writing about that more, by the way, on Friday, maybe answering some questions that are still lingering out there even after the sides agreed and get Comcast with Bally Sports North back on the air. By the way, I like Jim Souhan's column today, too, on Louis Varland, an option for the Twins to upgrade their bullpen sitting right there. Cost him $2. Cost of a green line ticket. Get him over here from St. Paul. Let him do what he did in the bullpen last year. Let's not pretend that Louis Varland is a starter. Just make him a relief pitcher. They need a little bit more juice. Another guy who can come in, throw hard, get guys out, get some strikeouts. Bring Louis Varland back. Let him be a reliever. It's simple. Louis wants to start. He's not a starter. Jim is spot on with that. So go read Jim's column. It was a good one. Let's finish with the cooler. Haven't talked much Olympics, and it's not because I'm not interested in them. In fact, I've probably watched more Olympics this go-around than I have in a long time. I think some of it was just the timing this week. I had a couple days off, things like that. But on those days off, we were watching a lot of gymnastics, swimming. I've been watching USA men's and women's basketball. Caught some 3-on-3 basketball the other day. I think it just happened to be at the gym one day, and 3-on-3 basketball was on. I was watching it while I was doing my cardio workout, and it was like, man, I miss playing basketball. I want to get out there again and start playing again. I've kind of let that go, and I started doing a lot of marathon training 10, 15 years ago. Didn't want to turn an ankle, things like that, while I was training for something, and just haven't really picked it back up. But these Olympics are inspiring me to get back out on the basketball court. They are inspiring me to watch more. These Minnesota athletes in particular are garnering my attention. Reagan Smith with the silver medal the other day. Suni Lee, a bronze. All of these Minnesota athletes. Anthony Edwards, Nafisa Collier. There's a ton of them for Team USA that we are watching right now. But even just anything that's on right now, if it's an event final, if there's something at stake, I am interested in this. So if you guys have Olympic fever like I do, just know that I'm not ignoring it. I'm watching it. I just think the Olympics are more of a spectacle that I just feel like are better kind of observed. I don't have a whole lot more to say other than it is tremendous content. I think NBC has done a great job, and I am going to continue watching. Hope you guys will continue listening next week. Royce expected to join me on Monday's show. Plenty of other good stuff coming up next week as well. Until then, I am Michael Rand, back at it again on Monday.